Let's go. Hi, Kasisi. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you, Stella? Thanks for having me.
I'm good. Thank you. I'm so glad you're here. It's funny. I didn't even think about doing this for the annual until your name came up on my calendar. And I was like, I know that guy. I want to talk to him. I
Love
want
it.
other people to know that guy. So now everybody else who knows me is going to be like, so am I going to do one of those video things? Because you did it with that one guy. So
Yeah,
we'll have to do it. You'll have to make this incredible so everybody, all the cool kids will want to do it.
I'm gonna try. I make no promises. I'm just gonna.
Yeah, me neither. I don't have time, but we'll see. So let's get right into it. You submitted a personal piece to the annual. It's creative nonfiction, so it's not a short story. It's not a comic. Everybody's interested in your comics, I think. It's a very personal story. How difficult has it been to tell that particular story?
You know, I think the most important stories to tell are kind of the ones where you feel vulnerable because you spend so much of your life going, okay, no one feels like me.
Yeah,
No one
yeah.
gone through that thing that other people have gone through, but they just don't share. And so one of the things that I wanted to do as a writer is to be very familiar. I want to take some of the personal experiences that I have that, make me vulnerable. It's
Mhm.
scary to put some of that stuff out there, but, and I want to share that. And I just want people to have the opportunity to ask me about that because that was a real thing. And, sitting on the sidelines, you may not think that something like that would ever happen, but yeah, that kind of happened, and that was my reaction. So
Yeah,
I'm trying not to give too much away in the story, but
yeah. We don't want to give too much away because we want people to get the book and read it. But yeah, it's emotional storytelling is I think that's what connects writer to reader. So even though that's not a fiction tale, it's a deep emotional connection, So I'm not military. I haven't been in the military, but I've been in those situations myself
yeah.
for many years. So I definitely get it. And it's interesting. Charles, my business partner in this thing, doesn't know you. He didn't know when we got all of the submissions who I knew, who I didn't know. And we were on the phone one night and he's like, I really like that military story. And he kind of named it. And I was like, oh yeah, I know him. He's my guy. He's he's in because I know this story and I want him in this. But he automatically said right off the bat, that was really cool.
I'm
So,
glad.
and he's military as well, or he's a vet, but many years. A dog, sorry. So you mentioned in your interview questions, which we rolled throughout the day, you've been at work all day, but I don't know if you've seen them, but we rolled your interview questions throughout the day. And you mentioned in there that you have a couple of projects that you're currently working on. And I know at least one of them. I
Yes.
don't know if I know both of them, but I'm really excited to see the final project for one of them. What can you share about your comic that you're working on?
I'm pretty open about it. It's I came into it with two things. I wanted kids to want to be the mayor. I know I didn't grow up and want to be not necessarily a politician, but serve in the role of a leader of some sort of civic responsibility, like a mayor or a governor. And you don't see many things today that kind of cheer for that. They don't kind of express that kids should want to be that kind of a leader. So that was one of the big kind of design criteria for this story, which is about, people who were in a bunker for 100 years and now they have to come back out and rebuild cities. And
Yep.
so the most powerful person in those instances are the mayor, and so the mayor of each city. And so they can all do different things. I wanted to create a different world where fantasy a lot of times is stuck in that medieval realm. There's a lot of stuff coming out that's not, but for the most part, we think of, some medieval plays with elves and dwarves and all that. And I just kind of wanted to take it away from that and put magic via technology into a world that's kind of, something that we see every day. There are buildings here, and magic is made real through science. And how does that look when a society has forgotten about the science and they consider that science magic, but the reader knows that it's science. So,
cool.
without giving too much away, the cities come back up, and now they'll have to deal with the people who were on the surface all the time that they were on the ground, and then B, how they relate to each other city-wise. I mean, do they unite? Do they war? What's going on? How do they rebuild? How do they forge?
Do they know that the other exists?
So they know that when you say they, so the people above ground obviously know that people went below ground. They think they abandoned them. So there's a whole mythology based on the deserters and the cowards that went below. But the people below think everybody above died.
Yeah.
Because surely they were the only ones who survived this cataclysm. So, when they come back up, they're not expecting people on the surface. People on the surface are expecting them. And, how do the people on the surface deal with, I could call them a coward, but would I, if I were given the opportunity to go down and avoid it, would I? They deal with those kind of emotions too. So
yeah, that's awesome. So you started off by talking about how you would like readers, kids specifically, to want to grow up to be this politician, this mayor, this leader. So often in dystopian stories, movies, comics, novels, these leaders are usually the bad guys. They're the all powerful. And we have, without getting too political here, we have very few leaders who are the kind of leaders we aspire to be, or we want our kids to aspire to be. So, but that's the role that you're taking with these mayors. Is these are good guys who are they trying to unite the two worlds, or are they
to make a better future for their city? But that ends up being uniting. You have to unite because you don't have all the resources in your domain. You have to, for the good of your people, start to unite. But it's all about wanting to be in that role for. As an adult, there's a whole bureaucratic system behind. Yeah. You have to be able to navigate that system, right? But for kids, you want to be a leader, to be a good guy or a good girl, right? You don't want necessarily to think about the bureaucratic process behind something. You just want that desire to be the person to help the other people. And, I feel like if you can get that back into the view of leadership, the rest will come. You'll learn how to navigate that whole bureaucratic system, but your desire to be in that role will be because you want to take care of people. I want to build that, kind of push that if I can. So we'll see.
That's really cool. I love that positive take on leadership, because like I said, so often it's, those are the people, those are the characters the uprising is against. So the people will overtake, and so you've spun that really well. That's really cool, and it's inspiring. So I'm excited. I've seen some of the drawings that you've shared from your artist, and it's really cool, really exciting. What can you share about the process behind creating a comic? That seems like such an overwhelming feat.
As a writer, it's kind of difficult, right? Because we control the script and the story, and it's your baby, it's your darling, right? And so, when you don't control necessarily the art or the lettering, you feel vulnerable, right? This is, you want it, you see it in your mind a certain way, but you don't have the ability to express it in that way. So a lot of it is about letting go and being open to, this is an artist, this is what they do. So being open to how they kind of interpret what you put down on paper, and then going with it. Sometimes they present stuff to you and you're like, man, that's a lot better than I intended. Go with that.
I hadn't thought of that. That's really cool. Yeah.
And it's my first comic. So this is a huge learning process for me in the sense that, I'm not the sole person doing all the work. I'm such a doer all the time. I want to do it myself. And just, again, being vulnerable enough to go, you know what? I recognize that I can't do it all. Hey, I'm going to try and find the best people I can to do this within my budget, of course. And it's been good so far. I mean, it takes longer than you expect. And so you have to go with that too, because we want it now. I want you to draw my stuff now, but these people have other work.
Yep.
So just being patient. And I have 2 projects. I think the first one, the bunker story, is so big that it will take a long time to produce all of it. And so I started to make a smaller version. I said, you know what? Let's just make another comic that's just smaller chunks. You can typically do comics in multiples of 8 pages. So, okay, well, let's just do like one serial or one series of comics that are just 8 pages quick, so you can finish, a series of issues and just get it out.
Yeah.
They say your first 10,000 pictures or your worst 10,000 pictures. So I want to get through my worst 10,000 pictures so I can take some good stuff. So
Get all that off the table. That's funny. So you're going to release the larger story in different volumes? Is that the plan?
So the larger story, it'll be normal comic length, 23, 24 pages. It just takes a while for, the artist to produce all those.
There, yeah.
And then it's multiple artists, right? I have an inker, and then I'll have a colorist. And then I haven't decided if I would letter it or not. I'm still debating whether I should letter it. I think I would give this first comic book to a professional letterer. I may do the 8-page comic because that's more of my kind of small experiment. But since all those different parts are associated with it, it just takes the chain for that just takes a while for things to get out. And so, again, learning experience. If you want to do, a comic that, I say that big, there's comics that are 34, graphic novels that are hundreds of pages. But if you don't control the art, you just have to understand that there's a lead time associated with that product. And you just won't, unless that artist is dedicated to you, all 8 hours of the day, you're not going to get that speed that you really want. You just gotta,
and you have to have the budget to pay them for all 8 hours of every day that it takes to create it.
And it's, I don't, different people have different budgets. I would say that I expected to spend money, so then I had set aside a little bit of money. But for those who are just going into it and you have the desire to do it, but you didn't really plan a budget, please research, right? Please go out, expect to spend on the cheap end $150 just for your ink. Another $100, $200 for the colorist, and that's just for one page. And so you just got to kind of make sure you're going through it. Give a person enough time, they can do things. Give a person enough money, they can do things. But you don't have the money, just know that you're going to have a lot of time to get that stuff.
I commend you as a writer. We studied comics and creating comics together, and I learned a lot about comics that I didn't know, and I have a lot of respect that I didn't have going into what we learned together when we were in school together. As a writer, it's not something that I think I would ever jump into unless I had, like my high school student is a fantastic artist. If I could get her, I'd pay her to do some drawings. I actually have a children's series coming out, and my artist or my illustrator is a high school student, and she's fabulous, and I pay her what she's worth. But you get into the research of how much all this costs, and it's amazing how much it is. And so my advice to anybody who would want to get into comics who's young enough would be start doing the art. Start there.
Exactly. Yes.
I think it's probably cheaper to hire a writer than it is to go through all of those different artists. But I mean, as a writer, you can certainly do it. I don't want to discourage anybody. I highly commend you as a writer for taking on this from a writing perspective and not from the writing and art perspective. It's really cool. And you have a story that's big enough for a graphic novel. So you could build this you know, even if it takes you 20 years, you could have this graphic novel that will then go into movie production and all that stuff. So
it's the hope. You're speaking my language.
that's pretty awesome. Let's go back a little bit to your personal story that you talked about, or I'm sorry, that you submitted in the annual. One of the links, I was going through all the stuff that posted today. One of the links that you shared had a short story called Turbulence. Is that what it's called? Turbulence.
Turbulence, yeah.
Kind of resonated with the non-fiction that you submitted for the annual. Was that also based on personal experience, or was that just a story you wrote because it could happen to anybody?
You know, it was fiction, and it's things that I think I experienced, not in the way that I necessarily portrayed it, but I definitely have experienced those things. You know, I am kind of, you know, I'm not deathly afraid of turbulence, but I don't like turbulence at all. So that's kind of where it came from. And then, being a gay male, I think sometimes there's a lot of, and I don't at all speak for the entirety of my community. I don't try to. I know in my life, sometimes there's kind of that jealousy for normalcy. You know, you can see a couple, and it's perfectly okay if they're close or intimate. You know, it's okay. Yeah. And it's not that you could not, as, a gay person, do that. But when you do that, you have all this anxiety flows through, some people will look at you in a way. Some people aren't paying attention to you. But the fact that you have to think about those sort of things, I just wanted to put a story out there that kind of showed, it's not necessarily wholesome thought that you have. Sometimes you get jealous of those simple things. And also, on the flip side, you make assumptions about people just based on little things you see. Like, okay, I see things that make me think that person is a conservative. I can't stand that. And it's like, wait, you haven't spoken to that person. You guys may have a common core of experience. Sure, you may not align on everything, but you have no idea about that person until you engage with that person. And so I kind of wanted to put that in there too. Like, all this time they have this assumption. There's this event that's causing them to be afraid. Then there's the sigh of relief. And then you find out, I'm so stupid. Like, that's not even...
judged that person the same way I assumed they were going to judge me.
Right. And so, I just... those are real things that I go through. And so,
yeah, that was a really cool story. And I'm a big believer in having a really cool twist at the end of a short story. Not all of them do. That was a really cool twist because you set it up for this guy sitting next to these two men is going to be an ass. He's just going to be an ass. That's just all there is to it. And he wasn't. And he was approachable, and it made me wonder in the end, like, I mean, he was pretty relaxed and calm, and he mentioned his husband, but it made me wonder, like, did he want to hold somebody's hand too? Was he out there alone? But he knew, I think he knew that he could have probably reached over and been like, hey guys, can I get in on this? Can somebody hold my hand? And he didn't. So he was probably okay. But it was a really cool twist. And I've certainly been through all that stuff too. Jessica and I walked down the street holding hands, and there were times that I don't think about it at all. And then there are times where I'm like, oh shit, they just looked at us.
Right.
Like, is a tomato coming? Like, what is somebody
right. Exactly.
And it's a lot different than it used to be, but I'm old enough to remember what it used to be like. And so I'm still on edge sometimes. So that was a really cool story. Do you typically write, because this particular story, Turbulence, had gay characters, do you find that your characters are mostly gay? Do you live in that kind of writing environment, or do you just toss them as you feel? Or
I think I toss them in as the story kind of leads to that. If I can express that through that type of a character, I think it just leads that way. Certain emotions like jealousy in my mind, the times that I can think, draw up that emotion in my life, probably revolved around some of those things. I can more readily recall some of those, events in my life. So I don't think I try I like representation, so I want in some way to put a minority, a gay person into my stories, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they'll be there if the story doesn't kind of lead itself there. You know, I don't force it, if that makes any sense. So if it doesn't make any sense in the story, kind of don't do that. But I do, you know, kind of like representation. If I completely feel that emotion and there's an opportunity to kind of show a person, hey, this kind of heroic experience can happen and that person's gay. You know, like
Yeah.
I would love to do that. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I think that's awesome. There are writers who only write, you know, for that audience, and it's funny because it's a world I've thought about breaking into several times, and it's a world where I've even thought about, well, maybe I need a new pen name for this because I have parents who are my audience, and I have children who are my audience, and I have, you know, straight people who are my audience, and then years ago I was like, no, you know what, I don't. If I'm publishing novels about lesbians and the parents of my kids' books don't like that, then they don't need to buy it, and that's okay. I'm not going to hide who I am. You know, this is the brand that I've built for a lot of years, and so I'm just. But it was much like your turbulent story. It took a lot of like, but what if they think, and what if they judge, and what if that affects my pocketbook, and you know.
Yeah.
In the end, I think it just took some emotional growth, but in the end, I don't care. So if you don't like me, you don't like my brand, and you don't like the fact that I talk about my wife, then don't buy my stuff. So there are plenty of other books out there. But you're right. I agree with you. But not all of my stories are about two women, you know. So if it works, it works. If it doesn't, then
it grows out that way. It grows out that way. If it doesn't, it doesn't. You know. Just make the story.
Cool. We're all people, and I think that's, you know, it's neat to have a niche audience, but I think my audience is people. So
exactly.
Yeah. Reading through the questions, you said you had 0 quirks.
I don't think I do.
You know, it's funny because I was thinking, as I read that, I was like, wait a minute. So if I moved one of those little Funko Pop boxes off of your desk, would you be able to write? But you know, it's funny, when I was thinking that, maybe when we've done calls before, maybe you were sitting the other way, because I imagined this whole wall behind you, you know, and it's not as big as I thought.
Well, I moved them all, so all of my pops that were sitting here are not here. You know.
Okay, so you did have a whole.
Oh yeah, I have a whole wall.
Okay.
You know, I don't think I have any. I have to have white noise, but that's about it. Like music, I have to. And let me rephrase that. That's how I've written to this point. I could probably appreciate complete silence when I write, maybe. But I think, you know, I don't. It would be kind of weird to me to not have, you know. I think things flow out of me. I vomit words when music is on, and that's what I want to vomit words when I write. So, you know, when you have no noise in the background, I'm in my head too much. Like, oh, but what I just put down didn't sound right. But is that, you know, grammatically? You're feeling the emotion of the music. You're just letting the words fly out. It could sound completely silly, but we'll take care of that later, and we'll just get stuff out. That's the only quirk I have, and I don't even think that's a quirk. It's just.
Well, let's talk about music real quick, because you said video game music. What is? I mean, I could probably hum the Mario Brothers theme.
I should start by saying that I like role-playing games, massive multiplayer online role-playing games. And they typically have a more involved kind of soundtrack. Their scores are typically, you know, epic.
The big, like fantasy movies, big, epic. That's what, yeah. Okay.
So you go through a whole range of emotion in those games. And you remember what you were, you know, even if it's subconscious, you remember how you felt at that moment if you were fighting something, or if it was a sad part. Like, you just remember so much, you know, subconsciously about that music. You're attaching that, and then that comes out. Like, if you need to write a fight sequence, the best way for me is to put on that music that gets you hype, and you were fighting at that time, and you just kind of belt out and kind of imagine what that is, and just kind of let it come out.
I think that's with every music. So that's awesome that you feel that and you know that from music scores from video games. I'm
more than that. I listen to classical music. I listen to everything, really. It's just that that's kind of the quirkiest one, because you can't just go out and buy video game music. You got to find it. What was that? What was that level called?
Can you play that scene from?
You got to find it. Yeah.
I need to feel that. I'm writing it. Somebody play it, pull it up and play it. But so kung fu movies?
Oh, love them. Oh,
inspirational.
You know, growing up, so I didn't get into comics until later in life. My superheroes growing up were kung fu. When I was 5, my mother was playing softball, and in between times that she was back, she would come back, and we were in a minivan, and we'd have one of those little TVs with the VHS player, and she would watch a kung fu movie, right? You don't watch it for the story. Some you do, but for the most part, you don't. It's just, you know, there were people performing. The biggest ones are animal style. So a guy could do snake, you know, a guy could do, and those different things in that choreographed fight sequence just attract me. Like, I will watch a fight sequence and like cover up the bodies and just watch the legs just to see different details of a fight. That's just how it is for me now. And the biggest
really cool
for me in an action movie is if fight sequences are not well done. Like, it just is the biggest turnoff because of that whole love for kung fu movies. You know, wow, for almost all my life. I watched them. I watched one yesterday. Like, I'm that guy. I know. So, yeah.
And so you love them because your mom was watching them? What did your mom love about them?
I can't say that I love them because she was watching them. I think that
you
was
were
where
exposed to them.
The exposure came from that. We watched kung fu movies all the time when I was younger. And, you know, I just latched on to my aspect of it. You know, they were jumping on buildings. They were doing these incredible things that, you know, the sound effects, which are completely unrealistic, but they're doing all this stuff, and it made them seem powerful. You know, you wanted to emulate power. I don't know. They were my superheroes. That's the best way to describe it. For a long time, they were my superheroes. And then you get exposed to like X-Men, and you're like, oh, okay. You know, but even in the comic world, even in like the 80s cartoon world, in some respects, I gravitated to the fight scene. You know, what is the action sequence for those characters? How does that look? How could you kind of marry the two? And today you find that they marry the two all the time. Like the Matrix, John Wick. You know, it's hard to find anything that is not associated with a martial art in an action sequence now. I mean, what would that even look like half the time besides a car chase, right? So
that's true.
You know, it's a part of me. It's always stayed a part of me. My dream is to produce something at that level. You know, can I make something that is that good, where even when a person misses a punch, it looks good? You know, it's a dream. I'll get there, but
that's cool. I love that. Stephen King and Brandon Sanderson. Did you know Brandon Sanderson before Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time?
No, I did not. My first exposure, I was trying to research how to write magic into a story. And so my first experience with him is the YouTube videos where he explains magic.
That was what I was going to ask, was have you ever seen his videos? He's got some amazing videos, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, how to write a fight scene, magic systems. And I was attracted even then. And I said, well, I gotta, you know, if he's explaining it in this way, let me kind of pick up his stuff and see what he has. I you know, Is anybody perfect? No. I just like his fantasy. I like that he puts a creative spin on magic. I like the detail of his magic. I like the characters and how he puts those twists in stories that, his twists are kind of like, oh man, oh gosh, I didn't even, I didn't know you were going to go there, but it's good. I have not read all of his stuff. I'm reading right now. I just read Warbreaker, which was great. I've read Starsight and Skyward, Starsight, and then he'll bring out a third one, please, soon. And then I'm reading the Stormlight Chronicles now, because he said they mentioned a character in Warbreaker in those, like 2 characters in Warbreaker Nightblade, and I want to kind of see that in there. But yeah, I like him. I love King.
I love Stephen King too. I grew up on Stephen King. I think outside of V.C. Andrews, who was probably my first author that I was like, whoa, this is really cool. Stephen King was it. When I really dove into adult reading as a teen, it was Stephen King and Clive Barker and Dean Koontz. Nice. Yeah, that's really cool. Go back and read Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time if you haven't.
I have not read that.
Sanderson was handpicked before Jordan died. He chose Sanderson to complete that series. I have to tell you, I'm not a huge fan of fantasy. I know the writers well. I know the stories well. I've had some of the Wheel of Time read to me, but I know their stories and Robert Jordan's story and how he picked Sanderson, and it's almost like a sweet romance of these 2 guys who, one dying, letting his wife know, this is who I want to finish my life's work.
Yeah, the legacy of my work. That's pretty. That's wow. I'll have to read that.
It's really cool. Yeah. I'm looking at my notes. I have names, and then I just wrote Sigh.
Was that how I picked them, or I don't?
Well, I don't know. I think I was thinking a lot of different things. I was just like, I don't know how deep you can go into this or how much time we'll have. So I don't know. You mentioned that you have such a unique name, so you put a lot of thought into your names. And
yeah, sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes you can't find the kind of name that you want with the cultural reference that you want.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of go with what sounds good. But most of the time I try and pick something, if a reader kind of looked it up, they would get a clue. That's kind of what I want, right? Why is his name Protector in Gaelic or something like that? And he's a druid. Why? I'm trying to put that into my stories. Will people ever get that? Maybe not. But
I think
engineer something, I think.
Yeah, I think most readers who love your stories enough to dive into all of that, why, and I want more before the next one's out, they'll take the time to look. I'm always amazed at how much is built into words. J.K. Rowling is one of those that, you look up words, Latin or Norse or whatever, all of her names, all of her spells, they all come from somewhere. She didn't just sit in this coffee shop like this magical story and like, what's a good, oh yeah, okay, yeah. They all stem from something that connects to what that spell is or what that character does in the story. And I think most fantasy writers do that anyway, but it's really cool. Really cool. Mentors. You had a couple of names. All of the names that you listed, ironically enough, were from Full Sail. Although let me just start by saying, in your answer you had Ronald Mann, and I changed it because I assumed it was a typo. If there's some guy named Ronald Mann that I don't know about, then I apologize, Ronald. I changed your name. I assumed you meant Roland Mann. Is that who you meant? Okay. Because that's what I put in the graphic. It's like who Ronald is. But anyway, not that I have to know who all your mentors are. I have to say, and I'm not going to say a whole lot, but I have to say I'm surprised to see his name on the list. Only because I had a lot of struggles with him as a gay woman. And I found a lot of, not in his professional environment in dealing with his students, but I found a lot of comments to be old-fashioned, which I took as racist. So I wrote him off after the first week I met him. And you are still looking at him as somebody you can learn from, which is really cool.
And I think I've experienced a lot of people in my life that don't necessarily align with, their personal views on things may not necessarily align with my personal views on things. But when we kind of unite on this one thing, it works. If that makes any sense. And we're not in places where we have to align on certain political views or anything. Yeah. So if it has taken a long time for me to have this kind of a mindset, but if I can kind of just divorce that thing in this situation, you can learn a lot, and you can actually see a person differently. And maybe, just maybe, the hope is maybe through people's interactions with you, they may uncover something that they didn't think was true about the world, or maybe they change a viewpoint. I've had that happen several times too. So, I mean, I can't change who I am. I am who I am, right? Like, I am a Black gay man with certain views. I can't change that. I can respect his work. He could or could not respect mine. And as long as we have that bridge, we can start building on other things and maybe good things, right? But
yeah,
I didn't want to, I saw some of that same stuff, but I didn't want to write them off in that moment until they kind of let you know that I don't want to have anything to do with you because you embody what I don't like. Until they have that, I have an open hand, outstretched hand, until that happens, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead.
It's really inspiring. It makes it, struggling to what am I going to say? It makes you a better person than me was what I was going to say, and I was like, well, I don't know if I want to say that, but yeah, I mean, honestly, it makes you a better person than me. I get what you're saying. If there was somebody who was really good at, what I'm trying to do, and this guy's a comic writer and he's good and he knows what he's talking about and he's published and he's at Comic-Cons, I get it. I would probably look past some things as well. I knew that I wasn't going to take this further. And so I don't know. I didn't follow him, but I wrote him off really early because I was so disappointed in some of the stuff that I had seen. But like I said, I'm going to publish this video. I don't want to slander anybody. He was very professional.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
In the settings where we dealt with him. And these are things that I found and that some of us students found in his personal life. And again, like I said earlier with my personal, like if you don't like my personal life, then don't buy from me. I'm not buying his comics, but I took his class and I paid for that and he got a paycheck from that. And I have no problem with that. You did a good job teaching me what I needed to know to learn how to script comics. So that was cool. But I don't know that I would have the nerve or the willpower to continue to stay in contact with someone and follow someone, regardless of what they have to offer, if I couldn't see past that. And for him, I couldn't see past that. So I commend you again. That's really awesome that you can.
Yeah.
So yeah. You had me on this list as well, and I don't know why I'm on that list.
places that I haven't walked, and you've been able to provide help, whenever it's asked. I mean, I think that when you find people that are like yourself and they've walked in these avenues, they're bettering themselves in that avenue that they're already good at, right? You want to be around those people. They make you stronger. They kind of build you up. You kind of see where you can go. And that's important, to have a vision of, hey, you know what? This is real. This person is doing it, and they're willing to share things with you. Grab that. Those are the people that you want to kind of grab hold to, try to understand, try to learn as much as you can from. So yeah, I absolutely consider you one of those people.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. I was shocked when I read the questions and answers. And I was like, that's my name. That's really cool. And honestly, that's what I wanted. That's what I want to do. And I've been in this publishing world long enough to know the people who paved the path before me and held my hand and lifted me up and taught me the things that I know. And I'm still learning from those people and all the people that I'm still meeting along the way. And part of this project, I actually started this project 2 years ago when we were in Brett Pribble's class. Yeah. I don't know if you were actually in that class with me because I skipped a couple of classes. But anyway, you may have taken his class. He owns a literary magazine. He puts it out once a month, which I got to tell you is quite the feat because it's taken me almost 2 years to do this one book. So, but in that class, what I learned was we're all, as students, as writers, as young writers, new writers, well-seasoned writers, we're all trying to submit, and everybody's hearing no. We're all getting all these rejections. We're sharing memes all over the place of 5,000 rejections. All it takes is one yes, and that is true. So I wanted to give a yes to some people who needed a yes, and be able to build a portfolio with some links of like I'm out there, and that stems from a place where I want to help people along this path. So that's really cool. Thank you for including me there. I appreciate that. We got to wrap up here. I don't want to keep you too long. Sorry, I've kept you longer than I wanted to. You mentioned that your dream, and we've talked about comics, we've talked about this great screenplay you're going to have with all these characters in the bunker and in the world. You mentioned that your dream would be to see people dressed up in your characters. What does that look like? If I go to a Comic-Con, if I go, where am I going to see all this, and what do they look like?
Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, any of it, just to see a person, in a sense, pay tribute to a character or to you as the author, or to the team that creates the project, right? But they connected with that character enough to want to put that on themselves. I mean,
so what is a typical costume for your characters look like? Do you want to share that? I mean, I know this comic is in, artistry right now.
Yeah, I have anything ranging from a Grim Reaper looking person to a kind of futuristic Egyptian looking. I mean, it could come in so many different forms based on the characters that I have. I mean, there's a simple, like a white kind of scientist. It could look like several different characters. And if someone dressed up as any of those characters, it would make I think I might even cry. It would make the first time, I think I'd cry. But yeah, I mean, that again would bless my heart if I saw something like that. Or somebody walked up to the table and they had some paraphernalia that related to something that I created. Oh man. That's
really cool. My daughter is 15 and she walks around in her she's gonna kill me. I don't know if it's Keith or Lance, the red, whoever wears the red from Voltron. She walks around in that all the time. She has a Keith and a Lance. One is green and one is red. She likes the red. I don't know who's the red. But she's Voltron cosplay all day long. So I bet you if I shared a picture of one of your characters, she'd be like, let me do the makeup, and she'd be on TikTok doing
Oh my gosh, that's great.
So we'll make her your first fan before the comic is even out. And then we could just make this whole thing go viral. Like, be like this kid.
That would be awesome.
we got to make it happen. That's awesome. Hey, it's great to see your amazing face. I miss you. I miss seeing your face.
Thanks too.
Thank you for being a part of this annual. This was a big thing for me to do, and I've learned a lot about myself in this process and this stuff that I want to start doing. So I appreciate you being a part of it and for doing this extra video. That's really
no worries. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of it. I mean, for me, this is amazing to have someone publish your work. I mean, I don't think that will ever get old. I know that, some writers have so much stuff out there that it may just, seem like a normal thing for them to be published. But I think anytime someone helps to share your work, they think it's okay enough to for it to be aligned to them to share too. Because I mean, your publication, you're saying that, yes, I would put this in my book to put out to people. I mean, gosh, that is an honor. I don't think you can ever get used to that. It's such a high thing to me. So thank you for letting me be a part of it. I appreciate it.
No problem. No problem. I'm excited for you to see what's in here. There are some really good stories. There's some really good poetry. Not that this was my personal mission. I don't want anybody to feel left out, but I did reach out to several gay writers that I know because that is my world. And so I'm happy to say that you and I aren't the only ones. So there are, just like I'm happy to say that there are a lot of prose writers opposed to poetry. It's a good mix of poetry and prose because Charles is a poet and I'm not. And I edit all of his or most of his poetry books, but I'm always like, I don't know poetry all that well. So I was really worried that when he started marketing that we would just have a bunch of poets and I'd be like, okay, well, this is nice. These aren't my people. So we have some great works. I'm really excited.
I'm excited too.
Yay.
Thank
well,
you.
We're releasing the cover tomorrow. So come back and look for that. I don't know if you know Jonas. I don't think I've sent you Jonas. I'll have to send you Jonas's information sometime. He's a fantastic graphic artist. He's done all my covers and all of my graphics for websites and whatnot. So he's fantastic and he's done our cover. So we're releasing it tomorrow. It's simple. It's not, it's an anthology. So it's not a deep fantasy cover like, you might like those photos in your background back there, but it's beautiful. So I'm really excited. So we're releasing that tomorrow. So come back and look for that.
I will.
All right, man. Thank you for spending this almost an hour now with me. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me, even with COVID face. So.
Did you see that? I mean, you said something like COVID hair, and I'm like, dude, like I can't, You want to talk about COVID hair? What's funny though is I can cut it myself. I'm just like, and my daughter looked at me today and she's like, "Can I cut your bangs?" I'm like, "No, they're fine." What do you mean?
What are you talking about?
And what's even worse is our master bathroom right now is being remodeled, which is great. It's been a long time coming. I can't, like, everything is packed. I have a toothbrush and some toothpaste and some shower stuff in the basement. And so every night I'm walking down to the basement to brush my teeth. And every morning I'm like, shit, I forgot my towel. I got to go all the way up to the stairs. And so like, I can't even get anywhere to, like, I'm avoiding mirrors. I'm just like, no, it's fine. It's fine.
Hey, positive thinking. That's what you said.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. Take care. We will catch up with you soon.
All right. Good to see you.
You as well.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.